What's up, everyone? Headhunter here, and in today's video I'm going to be posting what was a live discussion between me and my mentor a couple of days ago. So if you didn't tune into that, at least you can watch the video over again. Ton of knowledge. Me and a group of people, including my mentor Sal, have been in this space for a couple of years, and we decided, you know what, let's just start a channel. Going to go over technical analysis, kind of where we see the crypto market going in a couple of years, and introductory videos, how to get involved with crypto if you're just starting out, and some other tactics if you've already been in this space but really haven't dove head first. So hope you enjoy it. Again, if you like it, subscribe, like the video, leave some comments, let us know what you want to see, what we can cover, because again, we're just going to be going off of the top of our heads what we think is important, what we're going to post. So let us know what you want to see. Hope you enjoy it, and like I said, leave me a comment if there's something specific that you want us to cover. All right, let's get into it.
Could be. Bitcoin is, for one, we know what the inflationary rate is going to be in Bitcoin at any point in the future. We have it programmed where we're not going to just magically find, a brand new supply. That can happen with gold. That happens every single day. If, we wind up, I know me and you have talked about this even off stream in the past with Elon Musk, being able to actually mine these precious metals in space in the future. Something like that has a catastrophic outcome on the market cap of gold. Aside from that, Bitcoin is a ton more transportable. You don't have to carry around pounds or ounces of gold in your pockets. And realistically, who the hell's doing that anyway? You know what I mean? Nobody's going into a store. And the United States certainly hasn't advocated for it. They haven't had a currency backed by precious metal since 1963. So, we don't see any viable way, especially going into the future with how everything is electronic transfer of payments, all these, digital wireless systems. It just seems like gold will become more and more outdated and antiquated over time.
And I agree with that. I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that, right, like you said, gold, traditional commodities, and stores of value. It's a physical thing. It weighs a lot. It takes a lot to move it, and it's not as liquid as you think it is. Whereas a virtual currency, where we're in a day and age where everything is run by technology, seems like that's the next step. And I feel like it's a very old way of thinking that because it's a virtual currency, because there's no regulation around it, how can it be worth anything? How can it be secure? How can it be traded? And I think over the last 10 years has proved that Bitcoin especially, but virtual currency is here to stay.
Well, the biggest value that Bitcoin brings to any of us is the fact that Satoshi had figured out a way to make a trustless system where trust is not needed in order to efficiently operate this public blockchain, where you do not need to worry if you have to trust the person that you're buying or selling from or sending or receiving from. Every single thing is put on a blockchain where we can see every single transaction that has ever been taken place. So that is something that is absolutely huge, where there is no third party that could stop you sending or receiving amount in value. And that's something, especially now that we see with how government shutdowns have been going on around the world. I think that's the reason why you're seeing people pour more into Bitcoin, because the trust for these systems, the trust for these governments, for the powers that be, is rapidly dwindling. Rapidly.
Sal, what would you say about the relationship between Bitcoins and the total market cap's increase in regards to the stimulus packages that are being dumped and money being printed by the central bank?
I think it's making people even more aware of, what is going on in this world. We have a system of currency that is just completely being absolutely destroyed by the federal government, by the Federal Reserve, excuse me, not the federal government, the Federal Reserve with printing, with the U.S. Treasury. Everyone has pretty much been talking about this. I don't think it's new information that we have now printed just over 20% of the entire United States dollar supply in the last 12 months. So out of all of the years that we've been doing this printing, we've now shocked the system with 1/5 of that money in 1 year. That is never good. That's exactly what Zimbabwe did, and we know what happened with Zimbabwe. So there's a lot of things that go into this that people aren't thinking of. They think, oh, great, we're going to get a $2,000 check. I'm $2,000 richer. They don't realize what that $2,000 buys them compared to 10, 15 years ago. And that's the great deception. It's losing value in real time before our eyes, and nobody sees it.
When do you think people are going to realize? When their taxes get hiked up, or when their dollar buys less?
I think when they start noticing not just inflation kicking in, but hyperinflation kicking in, when all of a sudden it's not that a loaf of bread went from $3 to $4 over the course of 2 years. It's when it goes to $5 to $10 in the course of 1 year. That's when I think people are going to wake up. And at that point, it might be too late for some people.
Right, and so how would you answer right now, as where it stands, right, the crypto market? If you want to buy cryptocurrency, right, and you want to cash out, you got to convert it back to fiat currency, right, to actually buy stuff with it. So in the future, if the fiat currency, as in the US dollar, is worth less and less and less, do you see a point in time where every single business is only accepting a virtual currency versus a fiat currency?
I think it doesn't have to be mandatory like that. At the end of the day, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all these other alts, all these altcoins that exist, they're just an alternate form of a medium of exchange, right? So if you have a currency that is completely collapsing, like the dollar, like the yen, like the British pound, whatever it might be, you have an off ramp into something that might actually, give you a store of value. And I think that's where the education aspect comes in, because a lot of people don't think of currencies like this. They think that it's the dollar and that's the end all be all of everything. They don't realize that the US dollar, the Dixie index, has been completely crashing. They don't realize that the value of their dollar has gone down significantly in just the last couple of months. And I think that more and more education and the more and more cryptocurrencies become mainstreamed and on-ramped into the mainstream culture, you're going to see people be able to, identify and say, maybe this currency is collapsing. Maybe this currency is losing its value. I can easily go into something that is not losing its value, that might be storing it a little bit better. And I think that's what people go into crypto for in the beginning anyway. They start seeing that, these fiat currencies are destined to collapse, and they'd rather have a counter inflationary currency that's going to, cut supply instead of increase supply over time.
Gotcha. So, a lot of the things I've been going through and reading up on is, the difference between the run up this time around, obviously, other than the printing of money, but the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum this time around versus the last time around is now that we're having actual companies, actual institutional investors buying up a ton of Bitcoin, and to the point where they're taking it off the exchanges and basically holding it offline. So, what would you say the future of available Bitcoin and available Ethereum will be?
I mean, well, with Ether, we're not going to really know because Ether isn't capped. It's not a finite supply, so we wouldn't really know for Ether. But with Bitcoin, I mean, you have to also consider, the other factors that people don't think about, right? We have 21 million total supply. About 18 million have already been mined. And we have about, what, out of that 18 million, what, 4 million have actually been lost thus far. About a quarter of the supply currently right now sent either to, into cyberspace, never to be able to be, gotten back. So, I mean, at that time too, I mean, you have to consider this is going to continue to go on too as mining goes on. So, I mean, you're going to see Bitcoin become more and more scarce as time goes on, especially with the future halvings. I mean, we try to think of how old we are right now, around 30 years old, right? How many halvings are we going to live through if you think about it? I mean, we're definitely destined to see around 8 to 10 halvings.
And explain a halving. Explain a halving.
So every 4 years, Bitcoin supply based the reward that's given to the miners for for their hash power input for the GPU is given out to these miners. So every 4 years, that amount is cut in half. So now I believe we're at 6.25 Bitcoins every 10 minutes that a block is mined. So every 10 minutes that that block is mined, that 6.25 Bitcoin reward is spread out and given to all of the miners that have, input their GPU power to make that transaction capable. So that is going to get cut down every 4 years, which when you cut supply, that will put an inherent increase on demand of that asset because there's a shortage of it.
Right. And I think that's what's very confusing about getting into this market in the first place is, at least Coinbase has made it easy for everyday investors to get involved. But as far as, Coinbase not hosting a number of the altcoins to get involved with, the fact that you have to learn how to copy an address and send your coins over to a different exchange, I think it's that complicated process that may keep a lot of people out. But do you think if they ever centralize it into, let's just say Coinbase, right, an easy to use database, could you see that benefiting the market as a whole?
I mean, absolutely. The more on ramps you give for the regular person to get involved in crypto, the better, But I feel like, even in the future, something like Coinbase, we might not need something like Coinbase. There'll be decentralized exchanges once they are able to, be developed in, a practical way, that we might not need these centralized exchanges anymore where, they're collecting outrageous fees because let's face it, I mean, it's not the most cost effective way. Even right now, when I'm doing my trades, I wind up paying, $40, $50 in fees. Decentralized exchanges might have cents on the dollar in fees. So there's still a lot of stuff that we have to go and develop as a space in the blockchain space as a whole that I think that will be beneficial to everybody and in turn bring more people into the space.
Yep, I agree with you on that. So I actually received a question, which is a pretty good question. It makes sense. Cryptocurrencies, especially in 2017, I haven't really looked at it now, but it seemed like in 2017 there was a new coin being invented every day, right? With they're not called IPOs. What were they called again, Sal?
ICOs.
ICOs, right? Initial coin offerings. And, for those people out there who obviously look past the top 10 or top 20 coins or even the top 100 coins, what does it take to create a coin and have some utility behind it if there's a craze and people are just investing in anything?
Anybody can make their own cryptocurrency that you can go on. There's a couple of different spots I can send them to you that you can go on and create. I can create Nick coin. You can create Sal coin. We can, make cryptos for each other if we want, but that doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily provide a different use case or be valuable. So I mean, that's the biggest thing that, how many cryptocurrencies have we seen that use SHA-256, which is Bitcoin's algorithm? They haven't done
Sure.
anything other than take the public available algorithm that they use to secure the blockchain, Bitcoin's blockchain, and they just make a coin using that. They don't provide anything different. There's no new feature. There's nothing different from it, So anybody can make it, but it's really going to be, which one prevails. And as of right now, any of these altcoins, they're not as decentralized as Bitcoin. They don't have, a lot of these altcoins have CEOs, have board of directors, have these members that control them, that control the supply of the cryptocurrency that's issued. Bitcoin doesn't have any of that. Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO. Bitcoin doesn't have somebody going on TV ruining its reputation, saying that they can bring it down. It's distributed for a reason.
Right, but so if anyone can just create a coin and get into the market, how does that help the legitimacy of cryptocurrency when, for instance, in order to be listed on the NASDAQ, you have to have a certain performance level?
Sure. I mean, I tell everybody the same thing. You have to be aware of what you're investing in. If you go into the stock market, how many OTCs you can buy, over the counter equities that, pump insanely high and insanely low and can lose 30-40% of their value in one day. There's always going to be companies like that out there. It's up to you to use good judgment and combine good fundamentals and technicals, reading the project, understanding who's involved in the project. There's a lot of different things that go into investing. But you can't say that the entire space, it would be like saying Apple is fraudulent because there's some knockoff Apple company that's, 1/100th of its evaluation. You can't discredit an entire market just because there's a few bad apples. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that since this market is so young, it's still going through some growing pains. Obviously, this cycle, I feel, has ironed out a lot of those growing pains since the institutional investors are going in. So, would you agree, Sal, that the market cap hitting over a trillion, the interest back into Bitcoin, where we saw Bitcoin at a low of 4,000 in February, up to 40,000 today, and a total market cap of about what 200 billion to now over a trillion? Would you say that institutional investors, big investors, are driving this action, or would you say it's FOMO from retail investors?
Absolutely not. It is not FOMO from retail investors. There is no way, and I want to make this explicitly clear, there is no way that a retail investor can drive this market the way that this market has been going. Absolutely no way. Even if people wanted to say that the original 2017 run was driven largely by retailers pouring in, absolutely not. This is big money institutional investors that have leverage plays at play that are able to move markets. We, in no way, shape, or form, can move markets. This is us, the retailers, riding the coattails of the institutions on this run.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so we're about 25 minutes in, Sal. So let's talk a little bit about our success. I want to start with you. Obviously, let's not give out exact figures, but since you've been in the market, maybe your current holdings, even if you have to break it down by the holding, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, what is your total percentage of profit over what time frame?
I mean, you have to really. It's number one rule of Bitcoin. Always talk about Bitcoin. Never talk about your Bitcoin. But I would say for my purposes, I'd say ever
That's
since
what
I
I'm saying.
started
Don't say
in
how many you have,
2017,
Sal. Don't
and
say don't say how many you have. Just talk about your percentage gains.
sure, yeah, no. So I'd say, between everything, between all of my alts, all of my Bitcoin holdings, probably in that 6 to 7,000% range. Definitely, just from holding certain positions, but I also allocate my assets differently. I'll have my holdings for long term, and then I'll have my stacks that I play with short term for trading, for scalping, and things of that nature. But yeah, definitely in that range, I'd say, probably a 6,000% gain or so with everything. But that's just from, being in certain positions for quite some time and, obviously using my technical and fundamental analysis to make educated decisions.
Right. So when again, just for again that average investor who might watch this and say, "Hey, just got into Bitcoin." What he's saying by 6,000, 7,000%, he's talking about 60 times on his money, 60 to 70 times on his initial investment. So try to get that in the market. Try to get that in traditional stocks, IRAs. You're not going to see that. And this is over a period of what, 2, 3 years? Unheard of.
Exactly.
Unheard of.
Exactly.
So to go over a little bit of my success, and again, this is all based off of what Sal has actually taught me and showed me over the years. I've been in this market for about 3 years. I haven't been in as long as he has. I actually lost faith after the last bubble. I sold out all my positions, but then I decided to get back in at the later part of 2017. So I would say over the last 18 months, in Bitcoin, I'm up about 900%. In Ethereum, I'm up about 1,800%. Chainlink, which is a rather new coin, but it has a very, very impressive backing. It's actually, I think it's ranked 10th now. I'm up almost 900% in that coin too. So these are the type of gains that you can get from this market. Now, this market is very volatile. You can lose your shirt in a matter of days, but it's the risk versus reward factor. It's the long shots that pay off the most. It's really just taking your money and looking at it as if it was Walmart back in the 50s, right? Invest in Walmart in the 50s or invest in AT&T in the 60s or 70s. It's really one of those one time in a generation where you take a shot and it's either going to change. You're either going to be the people they talk about, or you're going to be the person who wishes they got involved. They heard about it but didn't get involved. So I think that was more or less the reason for my investment. I was looking for something to be life changing and something that was that once in a generational play. So Yeah, how do you feel about that, Sal?
I mean, this very well could be that once in a generational play. Now that's not going to say that everything is going to take off or moon, because we know that 99% of these currencies will fail.
And we
They
saw
absolutely will
99%
fail.
declines in some of our holdings. So
Yeah,
we've been through the pains.
I've seen the I've seen the worst of the worst drops. I mean, the only drop that I wasn't really around for was the Mount Gox hack, and the Mount Gox hack was probably that we'll go into that another day,
Oh,
but
that was terrible.
that's as bad. If that, I'll leave it with that. If Bitcoin can survive something like Mount Gox, if anybody out there is even watching this wants to look it up,
Look it up.
then you'll understand that there's really nothing else that can stop or kill Bitcoin. Bitcoin cannot be uninvented. Bitcoin is here to stay, and blockchain and cryptocurrency technology is here to stay and will only grow into the future, not decline.
Right. 100%. Um,
Maybe we could do we'll follow up on a stream, maybe do some technical analysis, start working that in as well in the future.
yeah. Yeah, because I think we're about to hit
We're at
30
40.
minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think we went over a lot today in regards to kind of our positions and kind of where we took this. Real quick, Sal, before we end this, obviously no one's going to hold a gun to your head, but let's give some price predictions for let's say the top 5 coins. So tell me what you think for Bitcoin. I'm estimating, and again, this is purely just off of, if everyone's looking at my chart here, right, we can see the run-ups. Here's the first halving. Bitcoin had I think it was, I don't know, maybe an 8,000 run-up. After the second halving, which Sal was talking about before, we had a run-up here. Now we're at the third halving, so that's why Sal says we're right in the beginning of this. We're not at the end of it. So, Sal, I could see in this cycle Bitcoin hitting somewhere between 50 and 100,000 before correcting. What do you think?
I During this next major macro cycle, and I'm talking, we're talking months and possibly over a year out. I could see Bitcoin at $100,000. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to have a straight moonshot to $100,000. There will be and can be, 30, 40, 50% pullbacks along the way. Do I think that we're going to get anything crazy like we used to? If the market cap stays around $1 trillion, you're going to start to see a leveling out of those pullbacks. You're not going to, the major reversal pullbacks are no longer going to be 80 to 90%. They might be 60 to 70%, so I do think that we are, by the end of 2021, between 80 and 100,000 is definitely in the cards before we see the next bear market kick in for, that could last 12 to 18 months.
All right, so now let's move on to Ethereum. Ethereum, and again, I think we get into more detail in the next video about what these coins actually do, what their use case is. But for Ethereum, I could see this year, because Ethereum still hasn't hit its all-time high, and if it follows Bitcoin in any sense, or if it beats Bitcoin, I could see in this year maybe a $3,000 to $4,000 Ethereum. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, Ethereum is going to follow Bitcoin, and anytime you see Bitcoin have its major reversals and major corrections, I don't know if you have your charts there, but you could check the day price action of Bitcoin hitting its all-time high at 19.8 back in 2017 in December, and then falling down and beginning a reversal on a daily downtrend. While that was going down, Ethereum was actually mooning over those next couple of weeks. So you actually saw Ethereum hit its all-time highs. I believe it was around 1,450 or $1,500 on certain exchanges, way after Bitcoin had actually started to pull back and consolidate and reverse the trend. Exactly. So I will say that, whenever we see Bitcoin top, that doesn't necessarily mean that Ethereum is going to immediately get dragged down with it. These markets cycle in nature. So you'll see Bitcoin run, and then Ethereum will run, and then Litecoin will run. So I would say that, Bitcoin is the first telltale sign, but there still might be some big moves to be made even after that happens.
Great. Yep, I agree. I was actually watching a video the other day that they're estimating in the near future, if there is a supply squeeze. I know you said there is no definitive cap on this total circulating supply or the total supply of Ethereum, but if there is a supply squeeze in Ethereum, since every application is based off of ERC20, we could see Ethereum hitting a top of $70,000 or $80,000 per coin in the future. I won't say the next year or two, but in the future.
Definitely. I mean, if you look though this year too, Ethereum has provided better returns than Bitcoin, so that's something else to consider.
Right.
Ethereum's up from its March lows and coronavirus dump about 820% right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And
So
I think that's where I got in. Actually, I think I got in. What price did I get in? I got in at $87 actually. So
yeah,
I think I was in Ethereum before coronavirus.
yeah,
But yeah, it dropped so low. It was an awesome time to get in. Even Bitcoin, 4,000, right? $4,000 low in February.
yeah,
Crazy. Crazy to think. Less than a year ago, you
yep,
could have made, what, 10 times your money.
yep. It was the best market to put your money in, undoubtedly.
So, last one I want to talk about is Litecoin. The silver to Bitcoin. What do you see as far as a price prediction on Litecoin?
I mean, you have to look at Litecoin, I guess, on the chart compared to Bitcoin. I mean, it's definitely dragging in comparison to Bitcoin. I mean, if you believe in an alt season after a Bitcoin run up, this would probably be one of the main names to really run to. I have a target of about 185 on medium term for Litecoin. So, but I mean, listen, Litecoin is still very well off its all-time highs in U.S. dollar evaluation too. So, I mean, if we see an altcoin season, there's no reason why we wouldn't think that it can go back to 350 bucks.
Right, and actually, TradingView on Kraken puts Litecoin at a high of $425. So
Yes.
even if we hit our all-time high, you can assume that in a strong bull market or a bubble situation, we could see Litecoin maybe 3xing from there. Maybe
Absolutely.
$1,100, $1,200 like per Litecoin.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I'm gonna wrap this up. Again, this is the first of many, so I'm gonna be one of those morons on YouTube. Click the like, click the subscribe, keep watching us every day, so that it's beneficial, and that way you don't have to, figure out what's going on. I think we're gonna do a series of maybe introductory, how to invest in Coinbase, how to move your money from one exchange to another, how to move it to a cold storage, aka take it off the exchanges so that it's not hacked. For the bear markets, that's really when you want to take it off the exchange. I wouldn't really take it off the exchange if you're in a bull market because you want to sell, take some profits off the table. But when you're in a bull market, you want to take it off the internet. You don't want it to be at risk to being hacked because this is still a very hackable technology in some sense. I wouldn't say all sense, but in some sense. So we're going to do some videos on that introduction. We're going to do we're going to get into technical analysis, kind of get you to understand what these charts mean, what the yellow line means, what the orange line means, what does this the Stoke RSI mean. So we'll get into all that. Like I said, we're going to do a daily series, so keep that in mind. And so Sal, thanks for your time. I appreciate
We'll talk
it.
soon, man.
And we'll see everybody next time.
Take care.